All right, we're getting into that realm of paper review now. Let's see what the headlines are across Nigerian newspapers. And to make sense of all of these, I have my regulars with me in the studio and also on Zoom. Oladeinde Ariyo is here. Good morning.
Mike.
The man in red today, anyway.
Happy New Year again.
Happy New Year. No, exactly. But we've seen this year.
Yeah, but we've not had our usual.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Well, we're here now anyway. Good to see you. You're welcome.
Same here.
Great. And I have Ambrose Igboke joining me on Zoom. Ambrose, good morning. Okay, we'll have him as we get along. Now let's begin with this Nigeria. This Nigeria is the one we're starting with now. It says, Hanifa's murder, Kano boils.
Honestly.
An angry youth burned down school where pupil was killed and buried. The government revokes operational licenses of all private schools. And Aisha Buhari, NCWS, that's the National Council of Women's Society, seeks justice. All right, this is really... it was a troubling, a very devastating story there. Now let's get to first news. First news says federal government spring surprise suspends fuel subsidy removal. Federal government spring surprise suspends fuel subsidy removal. All right, that's on the front page of first news. Blueprint is next. A blueprint says planned fuel subsidy removal. Federal government bows to pressure. Says timing is problematic. You know, it's the time. You know, while Buhari is not in support, Silva, the Minister of State for Petroleum, is saying this. PIA implementation threatened, and its tactic to slam hike on Nigerians. Akanfa is saying that we must be vigilant. Arumudade is saying this, and the government's decision is positive. Yaga Africa and the APC are saying this. Okay, that's the Blueprint newspaper. From there, let's go to Daily Independent. Federal government backpedals, suspends removal of fuel subsidy. Cites a heightened inflation, says removal will worsen citizens' situation. That's what Daily Independent has. Daily Times is next. Federal government backtracks on fuel subsidy removal. Subsidy removal not possible for now. Petroleum Minister is saying this. We'll ask National Assembly for supplementary approval to subsidy fuel beyond June. The Finance Minister is saying this. Daily Trusts is next. And it says federal government backtracks, retains petrol subsidy. 2022 budget amendments to cover payments beyond June. Build refineries as permanent solution. Experts are telling federal government of this. All right. And 2022, that's Daily Trust, 2022 budget amendment to cover, payments beyond June. We've said that. All right. The Senate President, Lawan, tells Labour to shelve the protest. Of course, NLC, organized Labour, have said they want to see what they can do going forward since government has backtracked. Now, the Nigeria Tribune is next, and federal government suspends planned petrol subsidy removal to return to National Assembly for budget amendment. Finance Minister is saying this, and Senate President wants Labour to shelve the strike. Buhari's government should prepare for warning rallies on Thursday. Falana is saying this.
Unnecessary.
All right. Okay. From there, let's go to the Nation newspaper. The Nation newspaper says government petrol subsidy stays. That's what the government is saying. Policy ill-timed, says Finance Minister. Lawan urges Labour to shelve the protests. Okay. From there, let's go to the Sun, Daily Sun. Federal government stops fuel subsidy removal to make additional budgetary provision beyond June. And Buhari not in support of policy, says the Minister of State for Petroleum. Okay, that's what Timothy Silva said. The Punch newspaper is next, and he says Labour set for protest. Federal government suspends subsidy removal, and NBA warns government. No going back on protest. We observe deceit in new twist, says the Labour. Removal suicidal now. Federal government's action political for 2023 elections, as the NBA is saying this. A subsidy removal timing is wrong, says the minister. Lawan begs unions. All this on the front page of the Punch newspaper. Okay, let's go to this day. Federal government bows to Labour shelves plan to end fuel subsidy from July. Okay, and Silva says Buhari against subsidy removal. Lawan appeals to NLC TUC to cancel protest, and postponement sends wrong signal for foreign investors, oil marketers warn. Okay, all this on the front page of this day. Okay, News Direct says fuel subsidy removal will heighten inflation. Federal government is saying this. Okay, Leadership newspaper. Fuel subsidy, federal government states head for showdown over FAC remittances. All right, that's what Leadership carries. National economy is next. PIA risks confidence crisis as federal government suspends petrol subsidy removal. Okay, then Business Day is the last one now, and it says why these 5 small economies will outspace Nigeria in 2022. You can read that to get details of all of that. All right, now let's get into the issue now. Ambrose Igboke is joining us on Zoom. Ambrose, good morning.
Good morning, Mike.
Great. I'm glad to see you. Yeah. We'll start from the studio before we come to you, Ambrose. Now, Oladeinde, the point there is all the papers today, all of them are talking about, except just one, talking about the issue of the planned subsidy removal, on petroleum in Nigeria. We've been here so many times. So many times we've been here.
Let me take some indulgence and talk about Anifa, the girl that was murdered in Kano.
Really sad.
We did a survey a long time ago on education and setting the standards, and discovered that in most of our states, Lagos inclusive, so many private schools that have no business existing are flourishing, and people who emotionally, academically, psychologically, spiritually are not prepared to run educational institutions are in need because of the business aspect of it. When the story broke, I was so pained.
It's really painful.
I'm a father to such a beautiful young lady, and where was his conscience at the point of feeding that girl with rat poison after collecting 6 million naira from the parents? It's unfortunate. Again, for the government to have now withdrawn all the license of all schools, is throwing out the baby and the bathwater.
He's saying all schools should come and revalidate.
We should stop this fire brigade approach. It doesn't work that way. What this points to is that we should step up our inspection surveillance and all of that. Okay. Now, on the subsidy thing, I was the first to say it, that government will attempt to withdraw subsidy, because it was clear that we are paying subsidy is a confirmation of failure of governance. Why are we paying subsidy? Because we don't have refineries. Stop telling me they are doing total maintenance or whatever. We do not have refineries. And it became so bad that we had sold our conscience and our oil industry to my friend and brother Aliko Dangote. He has become our Lord and Savior now. He's the one we are all waiting for. Unfortunately, they still came out to say they will withdraw subsidy. But the question I was asking them was, what will be in place against that? That was why I was against borrowing money for non-income generating investments. I would have supported borrowing money to start a refinery or something. There are modular refineries around the world that we can quickly set up and then keep these things going. But in his wisdom, government didn't see sense in that. Now that they said they are backing off removal, from where now will the money to fund that come? You and I know that a greater portion of our national budget is going to service debts, and they are even from borrowed funds. So the situation is not looking good. It's a catch-22 situation. We really need to go back to the drawing board.
All right, Ambrose, let me come to you on this. The point there is, Nigerians are looking at what government is doing and listening to what government is saying. Now, the line they said that, it is not, the timing is not right. You know, if we remove subsidy now, it's going to cause a lot of hardship on the people. Now, one will assume that these were the initial issues that would have been considered in and out before coming out to even say that there would have been removal of subsidy in the first place. What do you make of communications like this?
First of all, there will never be a time that is good for removal of subsidy. Right enough. Because in the first place, subsidy should never be removed insofar as the Federal Republic of Nigeria, the federal government refused to have functional refineries.
Right.
So subsidy, Nigerians are entitled to subsidy, and it should never be removed. Nigeria should not pay for a petroleum product that is being exploited in their own country and ought to be refined in their own country. They can never, as citizens, pay with par of international price of the same refined products. So when these technocrats or pseudo-economists or bought-over economists come to tell us that in Texas or in Venezuela or whatever country they are quoting and paying XYZ amount for pump price, that Nigeria should pay the same, I told them that the most wicked of all Nigerian citizens. Because even in America they are quoting for us, they subsidize the agricultural products. In fact, there's a trade war between America and China in the subsidy of agro products. So no country exists without subsidies for their citizens. So in our own case, we provide everything for ourselves. And we are talking about countries, other countries that are providing everything, amenities for their citizens, yet they subsidize, so that their own citizens can have competitive edge in the international market. Now, when it comes to subsidy of petroleum, it can never go away, because Nigerian citizens will not allow it. How do you explain that we are exploiting crude, we're exporting crude, and then we cannot refine our products? And refining crude oil goes about with other ancillary services. Petroleum is there, fertilizer is there, jelly is there, grease production, all that many other production that could employ thousands and hundreds of thousands of Nigerian citizens. We are not doing that. Failure of federal government, then we are asking the citizens to now pay through their nose. It won't work. Remember that in 2012, we are 10 years behind the line. We are still talking about it. There was a massive project in Ojota and in other parts of the country on the 12th of January 2012. This is 2022, 10 years. And the current APC government used that as a yardstick for campaign and gave us all kinds of breakdown, all kinds of mathematic solutions that said that, I remember Tam David West, the elder statesman, saying that landing cost is 40 naira. What has happened to it? So based on that promise that we are going to remove subsidies so that our refineries can work, what has happened to the licenses given to private hands to do modular refineries? So as far as we are not having our refineries working, it is a duty of the federal government to subsidize petroleum products in this country. The alternative to it is to ensure that the refineries work, especially the private refineries that have gotten license. What has happened to small refineries? We are not talking of gigantic refineries. Nobody needs that anymore. We are talking about refineries that service communities, that service states, that service regions, that service local government. A local government can decide to build a small refinery. So they are making it look like refinery is a rocket science. Exactly. I mean, one single individual, Aladeinde Dangote, is building a gigantic refinery, and the whole federal government cannot even build their own. So I don't think it's a big deal. Nigerians should not be deceived by this mimicking and this subsidy topsy-turvy. It is not for our own interest. And there are two options. Either make the refineries work, either encourage private hands to build refineries so that we can have product at a very cheap price. We shouldn't be paying more than 35 naira per liter for petrol. Well, in Nigeria, we shouldn't. There's no reason why. And the second alternative, which we have been doing and which is costly to our economy, but which we must continue to do for the sake of our citizens, is to continue to subsidize.
Right. Oh, okay. Well, that's a perspective. Now, the point there is, since it is seeming or it's looking like it's kind of difficult to get or challenging to get the refineries working,
I refuse to accept that.
I know the point there is, I am not
the missing link here is the willpower, determination,
that's the
and also fulfillment of electoral promises.
Now, that's what I'm saying. Now, the point there is that it seems government after government, administration after administration have found it challenging or difficult to ensure that this refineries work.
Common stream or new ones are established.
Exactly. We'll be hearing of turnaround maintenance. The last
swallowing
30,
billions
40
of
years.
naira.
We've had all of these, one government after the other.
Right.
Now, what would it look like to even, publicly sell the refineries in such a way that in the capital market where Nigerians have a buy-in and then they own the company and then it works for them?
Don't forget that certain governments sold the refineries.
Yes, exactly.
Another one came and cancelled the sales, reversed everything. And we thought they had a game plan or strategies whereby they would turn things around and make those things to work. But no. But the one that pains me most is the fact that right there in Chatham House, Mr. President promised the world all of his specific promises that he will build a refinery, one refinery every year. And I said, how possible? Build one and let's see. 7 years after, not one refinery has been built or initiated by the federal government. So when we now say our economy is in jitters, what do we expect? If we had built just one refinery, whether modular or standard, the petrochemical industry will have sprung up. You cannot imagine the job creation and the round-robin effect on both the local or immediate economy and the national or regional economies. But nobody was looking in that direction. Rather, we are far more interested in building a rail line from Kano to Maradi in Niger Republic. Not getting our priorities right has remained our problem. Establishing refinery is not rocket science. If one man, Aliko Dangote, can envision it, and today what he's building, they say is the world's biggest. Come on. Are we now saying government can do it?
To even add to that before you continue, the point is we have young boys and young, youths in the trenches somewhere, building. They call them illegal refineries.
But they are refining.
If they can conceive, although very crudely,
but they are refining. Why not gather them and try to make sense out of the nonsense you assume they are doing? Our case is very simple. Let's come home to the basics. I'm a farmer. I have cassava in my farm and it's been converted through processing to garri. Now I need to make a bar for my family. I don't have a stove. You have the stove. If I give you a kilo of garri to make a bar for me, it's going to come back at maybe less than half a kilo of a bar for my family. I'm already disadvantaged. Common sense dictates that for me to enjoy the benefit of owning the crude or the raw material, I get a stove. Simple and straightforward. You don't need a degree in economics to connect what I'm saying.
Exactly.
So we will continue to beg the question until we are ready to have our refinery. Petrol in Nigeria, if you ask me, should not cost 50 naira. Come on, we have the crude here. And what is the big?
No, but in a situation where we are
now allowing
the price of petrol is
I
not
don't want
determined.
To talk about
is not determined
what is
by
in America.
Nigeria.
No, all other issues on Human Development Index are not at par with American standard or measurement. So you cannot now benchmark or use that matrix and tell me in America they pay 1,000. Let them pay 2 million. It's not our business. We own the crude. We should be able to refine. And those are the two sore points we have in Nigeria: power and energy. The twin evils plaguing us over the years. Okay. Are we now saying that we cannot overcome them? If Dangote's refinery should start now, already they said they want to buy a percentage of the refinery. I just hope they will now put in the wrong leg and begin to give the man some needless headaches, because you don't now go and tell him how much to sell. Yeah, because you don't know his financials, the figures, the loans.
But by the way, your analogy of Eba is really interesting. It's a long time I've taken Eba.
Don't worry, we can go and meet after this time.
All right, Ambrose, let me come to you on this. The point there is the PIA, the way it is, the provisions of the PIA does not support the subsidy as it is right now. And it's been signed into law. Now that the government is backtracking and deciding to leave subsidy to be on, what do you make of this seeming contradiction?
Illegality.
Well, first of all, anything the constitution, government exists for the welfare and security of its citizens. That is the primary responsibility of government and the first constitutional duty. So that is why welfare came first before security. If you watch the wordings of the constitution, that means that welfare is primarily the most important index, because when you get welfare right, you will get security right. Now, when you now come to think of it, why will a Nigerian be paying for what is available? Therefore, the federal government, whether it's Petroleum Industry Act, whatever act they are bringing on board, so far the act does not act in favor to Nigerians, that act cannot survive. And the government has also seen that fact. And that is why the federal government is saying, let's step down on this subsidy and let's continue with it. Because it's an election year. Any misstep you do now, any anti-people's policy that you bring on board now will affect you in the general elections. So government is being smart and trying to say, okay, let's forestall this so that we have an election year coming up. Let's not risk it. And that is what is happening now. I don't think this issue is for altruistic reasons. I don't think it's for any other, because if Labour goes on strike, it is a negative vibration that give it to the government. It's connoting the government as people who are not sensitive to Nigerians, and the government, any government, do not like that kind of tag on them in coming into an election period. So the best thing to do is to get more investors, create an enabling environment, encourage people to do modular refineries, not gigantic ones like the one Dangote has done. Not everybody is a Dangote that can muster. Even him, he had a long battle. You know, there was a time he has to service his debt, the cost kept on ballooning. So he had a lot of issues, and he has to postpone even the date he was supposed to set up. So it's not even easy. But if you have, for example, you have a space like Surulere, somebody can set up a refinery and say, I want to service Surulere local government, I want to service Koshofa local government, I want to service Lagos State only, I want to service Oyo State, I want to service Enugu State. So it doesn't mean that we have so gigantic thing. But what is the enabling environment? Government cannot at one side be saying, oh, we are encouraging private hands, and the other side, we are not creating the enabling environment. And then secondly, what we need to also investigate, who is gaining from refining our food products overseas? Who is gaining from it?
All right.
Definitely.
That's a question that
answer the question.
Let's the person who is gaining. Let us leave it. Let's leave it. So that
because the corruption around subsidy, they are still on the side there till today. Nobody is in jail.
Ambrose, let's leave who is gaining.
Nobody is in jail.
Let's leave it.
All the corruption identified.
I know that Mike wants to be free for the hammer of NBC. So
Don't we'll put everything straight, but let's not go into that for now. Now, the point there is the NBA Nigeria Bar Association was quoted at some time saying that, well, what you see now, it looks like because elections are coming, so government cannot afford to
rock the boat.
Yeah, rock the boat, just like Ambrose was saying. You feel the same way?
It cannot be otherwise. The moment they announce the likelihood of removal, NLC woke up from its deep valium-induced slumber and decided planning a protest. And government could now see ahead that if they should allow that protest to take place, if it gets out of hand and it becomes a national protest, it will not go well, either for the present or the election period. So they have to let it put a stop to it. But the question is, we have only postponed the evil day because our figures are not looking good. You know, it's a pity that we don't benchmark budget. We just announce budget and make proposals. If at the end of each year we come back and say how well have we performed, item by item, then people will see that we are not doing any well. So we have to stop this, and this is where I'm going to be a lot more harsher and harder on anyone coming in to say he wants to manage Nigeria. We no longer want to deal with deceits and unfulfilled promises. It was very painful that virtually everything promised by Mr. President at the time that day in 2014, virtually none has been fulfilled all I care.
Okay, we have to leave it here now. Thank you so much, Oladeinde Ariyo, for your time on the program. Really
thank you for having me.
Thank you. Ambrose, Igboke, thank you very much for coming.
I give you a handshake because they said the fourth wave of COVID is no more in so we can now
we can't throw caution to the wind, that's all. All right, thank you very much, gentlemen.